I hope you guys can see the screen as well. Right. So, my dear students, we have been discussing about the longest poem in your English literature syllabus. Big Match 1983 by Yasmine Gunarathne is the longest poem where you have 7 stanzas. It can be identified as the longest poem in the syllabus, right? So if you read very carefully, you will realize that the poem is very difficult to understand, because in this poem, I told you several times, we discuss about the political history of Sri Lanka. And this particular incident is known to be Black July, which is actually occurred in 1983, and you don't have any idea about that one as well. So it is better to pay your attention very carefully, because in order to understand this poem, you have to have a very good understanding about the political history of Sri Lanka. If you don't find any understanding about the political history of Sri Lanka, it would be very difficult to understand the poem, right? So in the first two parts of the poem, we discussed about how media reacted to this particular situation, how tourists reacted to this particular communal clash which occurred in 1983. And in the second part, the latter part of the poem, we discussed that how people actually thought about this particular incident and how they try to find out the reasons for this particular communal clash, how they came up to this particular ravaged place. So most of the people, they identified that, okay, we actually face this particular communal clash because of our emotions, actually controlled us more than our logical mind. So this is actually the communal clash between Tamil people and Sinhala people, right? So majority of the Sinhalese believe that all the Tamils who lived in Colombo and all the urban areas are terrorists because they use Tamil as their mother tongue. This is actually a wrong impression, or else we can say this is actually a wrong understanding when it comes to the majority of Sinhalese, but later they realize that they have done something wrong. Majority of Sinhalese, they realize that they have tortured these innocent Tamil people, they have destroyed their property, and they have behaved in a quite irrational manner. They understood that, right? But make sure to understand, even though they understood that, these opportunistic politicians, they are the ones who actually hired all these mobs and thugs by providing them money. They are the ones who asked these mobs and thugs to continue this communal clash for more than 3 days. Now, it is true that the majority of Sinhalese actually started this particular problem. There is no doubt about that. But make sure to remember, this was continued by opportunistic politicians. They wanted to continue this particular communal clash because they understood that they can take some kind of political advantage from that. When people are divided as Muslims, Tamils, Sinhalese, the advantage will be taken by the politicians. Then they can say that, okay, we are going to give you the protection. If you need the protection, vote us. If you vote us, we can give you the protection. So based on the communities, based on the ethnicities and religion, lot of political parties were made. Even today in Sri Lanka, see the names of these political parties: Ilangai Tamil Arasu Kachi, Tamil, Bodubala Sena, Buddhism, right? Or else Mahasinghale or whatever, right? Then we have Sri Lanka Muslim Congress, Islam. So most of the political parties were based on either the language or else the religion, right? So politicians understood that we can take some kind of advantage from this communal clash. So we should not stop this. We should continue this, including the president. Everybody understood this reality. So the poetess is actually criticizing this behavior. Politicians should not behave like that. They actually control this situation according to the way they like. As a result of that, what actually happened, lot of Tamil people went to other countries like Canada, England, Australia. You may have heard the word called diaspora. I don't know whether you have heard that word, diaspora. Today, those Tamils were known to be the diaspora. Still, they have the same vengeance towards our country. They don't like Sri Lanka. They are ill-treating, neglecting Sri Lanka because still they have those nightmares in their minds. So they have not given up their vengeance. So even today, the incident occurred actually in 1983. Can you understand? Even today, the repercussions can be seen. The results of this incident can be seen even today. So this is what you have to understand as the young generation. Politicians want to divide us, right? This is what we call divide and rule method. This is actually introduced by British. You will learn about that when you learn about history, right? They understood that the most successful method of controlling Sinhala people was divide and rule method. We can divide them according to religion. Udarata Sinhala, Pahatarata Sinhala. Likewise, when we divide, what will happen, right? It is easy to control, right? So still, Sri Lankan politicians are actually using that particular concept. So last week, we discussed about this particular 5 lines, right? So in this particular 5 lines, I want to highlight certain political years because without having a proper understanding about these political years and the history behind that, I don't think you will be able to understand this particular poem. I told you this poem comes under the category of Sri Lankan literature. If you take most of the writers under the category of Sri Lankan literature, including Anne Ranasinghe, Chitra Fernando, Patrick Fernando, right? If you take most of the writers, you can see that they discuss about this political situation of the country. They discuss about the communal clash. They discuss about fundamental rights, right? So when we refer to Yasmine Gunarathne, she is also representing the Sri Lankan literature. She is a writer who wrote in English about Sri Lankan literature. So in this poem also, we can understand the political history. She touches the political history. So certain years are very much important to us. We have to pay attention to that. Let's read the lines and let's try to understand. Now, I told you, now this is a flashback. Now the majority of Sinhalese are upset. Why they are upset? Because now they can understand whatever the actions that they have done without thinking about the repercussions. Now it has come to a point that even today, even the young generation faces number of troubles and tribunals due to the actions they have done long time ago. Due to the actions they had done long time ago. Even today we suffer when we go to Canada, when we go to Australia, when we go to England. Most of the Tamils, they don't like Sinhalese. Why? Why? What is the reason? The reason is the big match, 1983, the communal clash, right? They don't like Sri Lankans, right? Because they have that mentality still. Can you understand? The mentality is still there. So we have to be very careful, right? Because Sri Lanka is known to be multicultural, multi-ethnic country. Can you understand? A lot of people live together in this particular land, right? So we can't say that since because the Sinhala is the majority, Sri Lanka is a Sinhala Buddhist country. We can't argue like that. All the other minorities, all the other communities are equally, right, trying to provide their best in order to make this land a prosperous nation. So we can't argue the fact that since because we are the majority, Sri Lanka is a Buddhist, Sinhala Buddhist country. That is actually a very silly argument. You can't argue like that because all the other ethnicities are equally supporting, equally providing for the betterment of the country. So this is the lesson that you have to learn. In this particular poem, national unity, the importance of national unity is taken into consideration, right? So we will continue. So how Sri Lankans actually came to this particular ravaged place? The 1983 incident did not occur spontaneously. Suddenly it did not happen. Try to understand. We came to this place one by one, one by one, one by one. So let's go through the history, the political history. So today we are pointing our attention towards the political history, right? We talked of 48 and 56, the first 2 years that we discussed, 48 and 56, 1948, you know what happened. 1948, February 4th, Sri Lanka gained independence from the British regime. Every year we celebrate that. Every year, 4th of February, when you turn on the TV, you can see that on the Independence Square, everybody celebrates the Independence Day. This is something very common. We all have seen that. But try to understand, my dear students, this is not the real independence. Why am I telling like that? Because at that time, even though DS Senanayaka actually gained independence, it is known to be half independence, not complete independence, because some of the powers were still vested upon British regime. We only gained certain powers, right? Some of the powers were still actually vested upon British regime. So we can't say exactly 1948 we gained full independence. This type of independence is known to be dominion independence, right? When you learn about history, you will learn about this dominion independence. So from 1948, these politicians are actually fooling us. Not today, even today also they do the same thing. From 1948, they are fooling us, telling that we received independence in 1948. No, we did not receive the full independence. That was actually dominion independence, right? Then what actually happened? 1956. Why 1956 is important? Where SWRD Bandaranaike, when he was the president, he actually made the new law. He said that Sinhala should be the official language of Sri Lanka. He came up with a new law saying that in Sri Lanka, majority of them are Sinhala. So Sinhala should be the official language of Sri Lanka. As a result of that, my dear students, what happened? Even in the market, even in the police station, even inside the courts, everybody used Sinhala language. Now, for you, for me, since because we are Sinhalese, we can survive. What about the Tamil people who live in Jaffna? What about the Muslim people who live in Kilnoch? Their first language is Tamil. So they couldn't survive. They can't go to the market. They can't explain their problems in the police station. They can't explain their problems in the courts. So they faced terrible situation. They didn't know Sinhala. Most of the Muslim students, they don't know Sinhala. Their mother tongue is either English or else Tamil. So people face number of problems. Minority groups, they felt that they were discriminated. Can you understand what actually happened? 1956, when SWRD Bandaranaike made this particular law, made this particular, what do you call, we can say that legal decision, when he legalized this, what actually happened was a lot of people, they suffocated. A lot of minority groups were suffocated. They said that how are we going to explain our emotions? Because this language is not familiar to us. You can't do something like that. We are also Sri Lankans, even though we are not the majority. We also have to have some kind of a language in order to express ourselves. Then they thought that, okay, the majority is trying to discriminate us using language. So hatred was there among minority groups. Big match, the fire was lit. The fire was lit. Hatred. They thought that they are discriminating us. They are not giving us an equal chance to explain our problems. So why should we live in this country if they are not giving us an equal chance to use our language? Most of the majority of the Sinhalese thought that SWRD Bandaranaike is a real patriot. He's a real Sri Lankan. He wore the national cloth, right? He wore the national cloth, and most of the Sinhala Buddhists, they thought that Bandaranaike is the hero, like Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa, right? The hero, right? Later we identified what kind of hero he was. That is a different story, right? So majority of the people, majority of the Sinhalese thought that our leader, our language, yeah, Sinhala, they thought something like that. But don't forget, right? SWRD Bandaranaike actually wanted to get the majority of votes. Even though SWRD Bandaranaike actually passed this particular bill, try to understand, SWRD Bandaranaike is a very fluent speaker in English. He studied in Oxford University. You can go to YouTube and you can search how beautifully, how eloquently he uses English language. Now see the difference. The leader speaks in English. but the leader does not like his citizens to use English as a language. Can you understand how language is working as a weapon, as a gap between the two people? Can you understand it? Can you understand that? Now, this is what you have to pay your attention, right? So, SWRD Bandaranaike created Sinhala as the official language. But he did not use Sinhala as the official language when he was going to other countries. He did not teach Chandrika Bandaranaike and Ranil Bandaranaike Sinhala as the official language. They learned in Oxford University, Cambridge University in English language. So, for the leaders, it is okay to use English as a language, but for the citizens, they did not allow. Can you understand what happens here, right? So as a result of that, what actually happened, even in Sri Lanka today, most of the graduates, most of the students, they fail English as a subject. Because in Sri Lanka, still we do not give priority to English language. As a result of that, when we go to universities, we fail number of problems. We face number of problems because we can't understand the language. So as a result of that, even though you are a genius, you can't understand the syllabus, you can't understand the instructions. So at the end of the day, you fail the exam. So this is what actually happens. So the minority groups, they thought that, okay, this particular person made this particular bill and he took the maximum advantage of that. This is actually kind of a discrimination. Tamil people thought that this is kind of a discrimination. Can you understand? Right. Then what happened? Freedom and the treacherous politics. What do you mean by treacherous? Pity politics. Opportunistic politics. SWRD Bandaranaike created that bill not because he loved this country. He wanted to get the maximum votes from the Sinhala majority. Sinhala majority. Right? That is the same thing that done by Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Mahinda Rajapaksa, Bodu Balasena, Sinhale, same thing. Try to understand. This is the political agenda. They wanted to take the maximum votes from the majority. SWRD Bandaranaike also did the same thing, right? But people, they did not understand this reality. Majority of people, they did not understand this reality. Even Gotabaya Rajapaksa's incident, we did not understand the reality. At the end of the day, we got together and chased him away. Finally, we understood something and we got together to the, what do you call, goal face, and we chased him away, right? So this is what happens, right? So political history is something very much important. You have to think about these things. Of language, see the first sparks of this hate based on the language. 1956 Sinhala only act, Sinhala language. Based on language, hatred was actually built up inside the hearts of people. Can you understand? Based on the language, right? Sparks of this hate, small sparks, started as a small spark, right? Started as a small spark and later it grew to a wildfire. Later it grew into a wildfire, right? Now, fanned into flame in 1958. What happened in 1958? First communal clashes in Sri Lanka based on language was occurred in 1958, before 1983. Can you understand? Before 1983, what happened? First communal clashes occurred in Sri Lanka in 1958, based on language, right? Because Tamil people could not resist. They did not like this. Can you understand? They did not like. So they protested. They said that, no, we need Tamil language as well, because our mother tongue is Tamil. We don't know Sinhala. So how can we communicate? This is not going to work. This is not practical. Obviously, it is not practical. Right? What if we make Tamil as the official language of Sri Lanka? Do you like that? Obviously, Tamil people can survive. What about us? We don't know Tamil. English, okay, we can manage still. But then you have a problem. You have to think in that perspective. Since because you are the majority, don't think that you own this place, right? This is the problem that we all have, right? So now, yet find no comfort in our need solution. Even though they started the problem 1958, right? The communal clashes occurred in 1983. This is 2023. Still, we don't find a solution to this problem. Still, no government has given an absolute solution to this problem. That is why the poetess explains the fact that whatever the governments that was actually appointed by people, they expected some kind of solution for this problem. Still, Tamil people are actually asking for their fundamental rights, for their human rights. But still, no government was capable enough to provide a solution to this particular problem. So the poetess is very much upset about this. That is what she says, right? Yet find no comfort, no need solution, no calm abstraction, and no absolution. No absolute answer, solution was given to this particular problem. That's what she tries to explain, right? So this is the basic idea. I think we wrote something about this. Did we write this part? Please pass me a message. Did we discuss this?
Yes, sir.
Very good, right? 1948, Ceylon was granted independence as the Dominion of Ceylon on the 4th of February 1948. Dominion independence refers to half independence. Most of the powers were still vested in the British regime. Dominion status with the British Commonwealth was retained for the next 24 years until May 22, 1972, when it became a republic and was named the Republic of Sri Lanka. This Dominion status was actually kept for more than 24 years. In 1972, right, we received the real independence, 1972. In 1978, we created our first constitution, right? Still, we have the same constitution making different types of changes, right? So make sure to remember the history. This is a history lesson, right? If you don't know the history about this particular incident, you can't understand this poem. So this is the flag that we used those days. Can't you see any changes here? What are the two changes? Like, can't you see any change? In the modern flag, what are the two colors that we use? What are the two colors? Modern flag?
Green and orange.
Green and orange are missing. In this particular flag, green and orange are missing. So green and orange are representing what? Green and orange are representing what in our flag?
Green are Muslims and orange are Tamils.
Muslims and Tamils and other minorities. Can you understand the problem now? Can you understand the problem? No place was given to the minorities. Can you understand? Only about the majority. In a country, you can't live like that. Yes, they came from South India, right? Muslims came from Arabic countries. Okay, we can understand that. But at the end of the day, now they are living in our country. Can we say that you have to go to South India? Can we say that you have to go to Dubai? We can't tell like that. They equally contribute, Puta. They equally provide for the betterment of our motherland, right? They are our problems. They are our pros and cons. We have arguments. At the end of the day, right, we have to agree to disagree. That's it, right? So they are our problems. I'm not telling that we don't have any problems. They are our problems, right? But as a country, we have to be united. So this was the problem. Is this the last note that we wrote, Puta?
Sir, we wrote about 56 as well.
Right, okay. Did we write about him? 56?
Yeah.
Write about him?
Yeah.
Right, okay. This is the importance of 56. The Official Language Act number 33 of 1956, commonly referred to as the Sinhala Only Act, was an act passed in the Parliament of Ceylon in 1956. The act replaced English with Sinhala as the sole official language of Ceylon. With the exclusion of Tamil, this was introduced by SWRD Bandaranaike, former president of Sri Lanka. So now you can understand what actually happened, right? This is what I have been explaining. So SWRD Bandaranaike decided that, okay, I want to take the maximum advantage from the majority of Sinhalese. So what I should do is that I should take their majority complex into advantage, right? He took that. He took that. Sinhalese thought that Sinhala, but they never thought that when they go to their higher education, when they go to another country, what kind of problems that they will face. Even today, some students don't pay any attention at all for English language. Even in the advanced level classes, they don't learn general English as a subject. At the end of the day, what happens when they go to university, they have to beg from other people in order to copy their notes, in order to go through spelling and the grammar and the everything, because they did not get proper knowledge in advanced level and O-level classes. This is what happens to us. We have to agree with that because we don't give proper importance to the language. English is the global language. We can argue. We can argue Sinhala is the best, Tamil is the best. We can argue, but we all have to agree with the fact that English is the global language. Without knowing this global language will be a very difficult path for you. So this is the reality. Did we complete this one as well, Puta? Please pass me a message.
Yes, sir.
Very good.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Right. Well done. Right. So I have explained you the word treacherous, guilty or involving betrayal or deception. Right. Petty politics. Right. Politicians actually turned out, right, our innocent people. That is what they always do, right? They promise. Araka dennam, meka dennam. They promise. So innocent people, they go and vote. At the end of the day, what happens? Each and every year, right? When they understand that okay, they actually outwitted us, then it was too late. This is what most of the politicians do, right? Okay, now what actually happened? 58. Did we write this part as well? Puta, me kotasan liwada?
No, sir.
Right. Okay, we have to write from there then. My dear students, there are maybe newcomers as well, I don't know. So you have to start writing. The previous note you can get because you can get the recording. Right, okay. You can start writing. Treacherous, guilty or involving betrayal or deception. 1958, what actually happened? Anti-Tamil program and riots in Ceylon, also known as the 58 riots, refer to the first island-wide ethnic riots and pogrom to target the minority Tamils in the dominion of Ceylon after it became an independent dominion from Britain in 1948. Right after 1948, this can be taken as the first communal clash based on language. Otherwise, you will think that the first communal clash will be the 1983 incident. No. In this particular stanza, we explain what actually happened, step by step, how we came to this place. It did not occur suddenly, spontaneously, it did not occur. 1948, Dominion independence. 1956, Sinhala Only Act. 1958, first communal clash. It was fanned into flame in 1983. Right? The biggest incident occurred in 1983. Can you understand? Make sure to write down. Years are very important. Political years are very important. Hurry up and write down. I need 5 students to complete. So you have to write down now. Don't wait for the recording. Take your writing book. Make sure to write down. Writing notes are very much important because I don't give extra time. Please pass me a message if you have finished. I need your answers as well. You should not remain quietly, especially when it comes to the literature class. You should talk with me, right? So you can see the faces of these innocent Tamil people, right? They were fighting for their rights. They were not asking something else. They were fighting for their rights. You can see their faces, right? A lot of young boys and girls, they were asking for their liberty. Language is something that we all use as human beings, right? We all must have whatever the language, we all must have the right to use whatever the language is actually common to us. It is our fundamental right. If you think that Sinhala is more convenient to you, Sinhala is more comfortable than English, you can use Sinhala. No one can't say that, you have to use this, you have to do this. No. No one can tell like that. Whatever the language which is convenient to you, you can use that language, Puta. This is what you have to understand. What about the other students? Please pass me a message. This poem is very important because from this poem, you can understand the reality of the political scenario of Sri Lanka, right? So I personally think that you are a little bit younger to learn about these things, but it is okay, right? You can understand by referring to the news bulletins and all the other political propagandas, if you follow all these things, you will realize that, this is what happens in our country, right? This is what happens in our country. So you can very easily understand that, you can very easily realize that this is what happens. Right, okay. I hope that you guys have completed. Shall we move on to the next part? Right, okay, very good. Right. I hope you guys can see the screen. Right, okay. I will read this and I will enlarge this, right? The poetess explains this communal violence was not a sudden incident. It was created gradually, the steps by which we reach this ravaged place. The steps are political and they were pre-planned movements by the politicians. Innocent civilians became victims of their petty politics, opportunistic politics. The word that they have given there is that, we found the word, right? We discussed about that word, treacherous politics. Right? Treacherous, guilty, right? Deception, treacherous politics, right? Innocent civilians became victims of their opportunistic politics. Furthermore, she explains the political steps, mentioning significant political years. In 1948, Sri Lanka gained independence from the British regime. Everybody thought from that day onwards, citizens in the country would be free from the British regime. But that was not the real independence that they expected. The real independence that they expected. Right. I hope now you can see the screen quite clearly. Hurry up and write down. Please pass me a message after completing. Writing plays a crucial part. I have told you, when it comes to the exam, Puta, you have only 30 minutes. In order to complete a question in the ordinary level examination, you will have only 30 minutes. Within 30 minutes, you have to finish it off. Right? Because you have 4 questions: novel, drama, prose, and poetry. Right? So you can't, spend your time a lot. It is your responsibility to complete your work as soon as possible. So writing plays an important role in the literature class. Don't think that අනේ මට recording එක හම්බ වෙනවනේ ඒක බලාගෙන note එක ලියා ගන්නවා ලස්සනට මම මුතු කැට වගේ අකුරු වලින් ඒව නම් පුතා මේ ලෝකේ වෙන දේවල් නෙමෙයි. Right? So try to understand. Then and there you have to finish the note. Otherwise, you will never be able to understand this. Otherwise, you will never be able to understand this. So make sure to follow this, right? Following is something very much important. So make sure to follow this. It is important. Hurry up and write down. If you can't understand, Puta, make sure to turn on your mic. Otherwise, please don't turn on your mics because it is a disturbance. Then other students will face number of problems. So please make sure to ask any questions that you have. So we are discussing about the Big Match 1983 by Yasmine Gunarathne. We are discussing about line number 9 to line number 15, where we discuss about the political history, how this communal clash occurred in 1983, what were the steps, how we came to this particular place one by one. One by one, what actually happened, how these politicians outwitted innocent Sri Lankan people, including your mothers and fathers, including me and you. So this is a very much political poem. We are discussing about Sri Lankan literature by Yasmine Gunarathne. She is known to be one of the best authors that we ever produced, and she holds a D.Lit as well, doctorate for literature, right? So when we study her poems, right, we have to remember about those things as well. Please pass me a message. I need 5 students to complete. Please pass me a message if you have finished. Is it, do you feel that the screen is blurred? Is it? Anyone? Some students say that the screen is blurred. Do you feel like that? Okay, then I will make it to this level. Then I hope you can see. Can you survive now? I am really sorry for the inconvenience because of this extreme weather condition. Internet connections are getting unexpected problems, right? So yes, we have to manage them, right? Right, okay. I hope that most of you have completed. Is there anyone who is still writing? Please pass me a message. Hurry up. Right, good. Okay, we will move on, right? So I want to show you this picture as well. You can find these pictures actually from the internet, and this is the place where SWRD, Bandaranaike, and all the other people actually came to this independence ceremony, the first independence ceremony that we actually commemorated, right? But the reality is, even though we celebrated independence each and every year, 4th of February, try to understand that we never gained real independence. This is what you have to understand. We never gained real independence. Actually, real independence means that particular country should have its own constitution. Can you understand? So we should not actually behave according to someone else's constitution. The real independence is whatever the country should have that their own constitution. That's what matters, right? So we actually received that in 1978. Right, okay. I hope you guys can see the screen. Sri Lanka received dominion or half independence. The political power of the country was still maintained by the British, and some of the Sri Lankans served as their agents, right? You can see the picture. Can you guess the fellow? Who is this fellow?
DS Senanayake.
Ah, very good. He is the person who actually initiated. Actually, he was an agent. DS Senanayake is known to be an agent of the British regime, right? They are the ones who served for the British regime, right? Sri Lanka received dominion, though half independence. The political power of the country was still maintained by the British, and some of these Sri Lankans served as their agents for the British regime. People were outwitted by the politicians quite well. We thought we received independence and our freedom, but in reality, we were still under the control of the British regime. This is what actually happened. This is how our politicians actually outwitted us. අපේ දේශපාලඥයෝ අපිට නිදහස ලැබුණා කියලා අපි ඇන්දුවේ මෙහෙමයි. Right? අපි හැමෝම ඇන්දුනා. ඒක තමයි ඇත්ත. That is the reality, right? We were governed by Sinhalese who were born and raised according to Western culture, right? We were governed by Sinhalese, even though they are Sinhalese, actually, they were born and raised according to the Western culture. Most of them actually studied in Cambridge University, Oxford University. So they had that mindset, right? They were not actually real Sri Lankans, right? They were born and bred in other countries, right? Senanayakians who initiated the independence were some of them, right? So DS Senanayake, Dudley Senanayake, FR Senanayake, these people are actually represented that Western culture. Even SWRD Bandaranaike, right? He studied in foreign universities, and even Chandrika Bandaranaike, they studied in foreign universities, right? So this is the reality. So the politicians, they gained all the advantages, right? From the education, from the language and everything, but they never provided the same advantage for innocent civilians, right? So they made Sinhala as the official language. As a result of that, what actually happened? Most of the Sinhala students, after their graduation, they can't find a job. What is the reason? The main reason is they don't know how to speak in English. That is why in Sri Lanka, we have so many spoken English programs, right? Can't you understand that? English is just a language. It is not a weapon. English is just a language. Now, who made this as a weapon? Politicians. They are the ones who made this as a weapon. In order to climb up the social ladder, you don't want English. English is just a language. The language has given this kind of valuability by these politicians because they did not allow people to learn the language. They did not allow. So this created actually what? Class difference. This created class difference. English දන්න අය, English නොදන්න අය. Posh අය, posh නැති අය. This is the class difference, right? This is what we call the class difference. This is what actually happened. But now, up to some extent, people have understood that there is actually a very good plus point. But still, some are not ready to accept this. They think that Sinhala is the most important language, and you will realize when you go to other countries what is the importance of English language, right? So this is what happened. They wanted to rule the country forever. They wanted to rule the country by their children, right? So they never wanted people from lower class or upper middle class to come to this particular social group. That is why they did not like that, right? So they never wanted people like you and me to come and rule this country. Even today, you can understand the entire country was dominated by set of generations. Bandaranaike generation, then we have Jayawardena generation, right? Then we have Rajapaksa generation, right? So this is what happened to our country. So no leader was born actually from lower class or else upper middle class, right? So this is what happened to our country, right? They have not allowed, they have not made that path. They have not made that path, right? So this is the reality that you have to learn as literature students. I hope you can understand. Samadhi, can you understand? It's a little bit difficult. I hope you can survive, right? Is there anyone who is still writing? Please pass me a message. I need 5 students to complete. Then and there, write and finish it off. Otherwise, it will be a huge problem. Huh? Yes, it is true that we call him as the father of independence. It's true, right? So I don't know whether we have some students from DS Seranayaka Vidyalaya as well. So it is true that he is the person who actually initiated that, but try to understand they were influenced by the Western culture. This is what we have to understand. They were influenced by the Western culture. That is what I wanted to highlight, right? So I'm not actually underestimating whatever the contribution actually done by him, but this is the reality that we all have to understand, right? Okay, I hope that you guys have completed. We will move on from there. Political parties were initiated under the theme of religion and ethnicity. In 1957, Mr. S.W.R.D. Bandaranaike introduced the Sinhala Language Act to Sri Lanka. He was an eminent scholar who is used to study at a foreign university with an excellent English accent. Even though he studied English, he never wanted his citizens to learn the language. These are the important points that you have to highlight, right? So political parties were initiated under the theme of religion and ethnicity. In 1957, Mr. S.W.R.D. Bandaranaike introduced the Sinhala Language Act. It happened in 1956 and 1957. Both years are accepted. Actually, in your poem, it says 1957, 1956, right? So both years are accepted. He was an eminent scholar who used to study at a foreign university with an excellent English accent. You can go to YouTube and you can search S.W.R.D. Bandaranaike and you can listen to his English accent. Very much British. Just like Kumar Sangakkara, very much British accent. So which means that he was known to be an eloquent speaker of English. But the tragedy was actually the same president did not allow the citizens of the country to learn the language because he thought that it will create a class problem, right? So people like you and me will challenge him, right? They actually rule the entire country, govern the entire country based on language, right? So they thought that language is a weapon, but try to understand language is not a weapon. Language is not a weapon. Right. I hope that you guys have completed. We will move on to the next part. Right. Right. He did this not because he loved the majority Sinhalese. He wanted to take the votes of the majority. He received votes because most of the majority thought he loved our nation, tradition, and language. Sinhala was the only official language at that time, and it became a terrible problem for minorities, including Tamils and Muslims, whose mother tongue is not Sinhala. They could not communicate. So, this is the problem, right? Now, you can understand how we came to this particular place, how we came to this ravaged place, right? So make sure to understand most of the Sinhala majority, they were misunderstood, right? Right? Misunderstood it. It was completely misunderstood. They thought that, okay, he was the real leader. Most of them thought that he was the real leader, right? That is how they thought. He did this not because he loved the majority Sinhalese. He wanted to take the votes of the majority. He received votes because most of the majority thought he loved our nation, tradition, and language. Sinhala was the only official language at that time, and it became a terrible problem for minorities, including Tamils and Muslims, whose mother tongue is not Sinhala, so they could not communicate, right? So obvious, right? It is obvious. So this actually paved the way for the first communal clashes in Sri Lanka, right? This is what actually happened. So hurry up and write down. Right. Now you have understood what actually happened, the political scenario of this situation. It is essential to understand this particular poem. That is why I am explaining them one by one, because this is a very difficult poem to understand. If you take 7 stanzas, each and every stanza is not actually connected to the other stanza, right? And they have different meanings as well, and they try to explain different aspects of this particular problem, right? Okay. In particular, Tamil citizens faced a lot of problems dealing with their day-to-day life in courts, police stations, and other government departments because the medium of instruction was in Sinhala. Based on the difference in language, Tamil people realized it was a form of discrimination. This is the place where the first spark of a big match was lit. This is the place where the problems actually started, the beginning of the communal clashes, right? So this is the first communal clash from 1948. This is the first communal clash which actually occurred in 1958 after the independence. This is what you have to understand. 1983 incident occurred after a long time, but these incidents also can be identified as reasons for that particular communal clash. This is what you have to pay your attention, right? So hurry up and write down. Please pass me a message. So we have discussed a lot. Then we understood how we actually came to this particular ravaged place, right? So these are the key things that you have to understand about the particular situation. British and Sri Lankan politicians realized divide and rule was the best way to rule Sri Lankan citizens, right? So you have to remember this divide and rule method, right? So divide the communities, create problems within the communities, then they will divide. Then we can very easily control it. This was the major, procedure that they followed. That is what they had done throughout the colonial period. Differences among citizens due to ethnicity and religion were used by the politicians. The method is very common in present day politics as well, right? So this is a very popular method when it comes to present day politics as well. Even today they do the same thing, right? If you think very carefully, right? They use the words like ape hamdruwane and like bodubala sena sinhale. So related to language and religion, related to language and culture, ethnicity. But politics, when it comes to politics, right, it is not about that. It is about the development of the country. Think about the leaders like Barack Obama, right? Even though he is an African American, right, he never talked about the black African Americans. He discussed about each and every person in the country, right? So this is what we have to understand. He never discussed about the majority, whereas Gotabaya Rajapaksa, soon after he came to the power, I can still remember the speech actually given by him where he discussed about the majority of Sinhalese. So that is not because he loved the country, right? When you became the president, it is your responsibility to take care of all the citizens, whether they have voted you or not. It is the responsibility of the president, right? So Tamil people, Sinhala people, Muslim people, Catholic people, we all have to connect them together, right? So think about the certain incidents which occurred in Sri Lanka. The best example, the Easter attacks. What actually happened? Again, a dividends was created for the sake of power. Now we get to know that, okay, who were behind this particular situation, right? What was their motive? To create some kind of dividends. This is what actually politicians do, right? So this is the reality that you have to understand. Making dividends. They divide people into sections. That is what they do. Hurry up and write down. Please pass me a message. Right. So we will move on from there, my dear students. Still, the minority groups haven't found a solution for their fundamental rights. And even today, these opportunistic politicians are taking the maximum advantage from the racial differences of people. Innocent civilians still don't have any idea they are being victimized by these politicians. The poetess is so critical about that, right? So this is what you have to understand at the end of the day, right? You can see these pictures and you can understand, right? Doesn't matter whether you are a Tamil mother or Sinhala mother or else a Muslim mother. A mother is a mother. The same suffocation is actually undergone by each and every mother. See how they raise their pictures. The children's, their loved ones, their husbands, right? No one is going to be responsible about them, right? So what happened to them at the end of the day? No government is taking the responsibility. So see, this is the tragedy of the country, right? This is the tragedy of the country. So based on these communal clashes, even from the LTT incidents, number of people died. So no one is going to be responsible for their lives, my dear students. So this is what you have to learn. When we are living in a country, we have to understand about the feelings of other people as well. We have to respect their nationality. We have to respect their customs. Okay, Muslims are not eating pork, but we are eating. So we have to respect that, right? Hindus are not eating beef, but Hindus are not eating beef, but we eat, right? And Muslims are eating beef. So we have to respect that. That is the culture, right? So since because we don't eat that, we don't have any right to say that you should not also eat that. That is not the way, right? They have their own culture. They have their own tradition. This makes the beauty of the country, right? This makes the diversity. So politicians, they do not like this. They do not like this. That is what they do. This is what the poetess tries to explain. In this communal clash, this is what actually happened, right? So a lot of innocent Tamils actually lost their lives. They lost their parents. They lost their loved ones. They lost their property. They lost almost everything, right? They burnt all the houses, which was situated in Colombo areas, right? Especially Tivirigasya area, right? And most of them were actually owners of these jewelry shops, right? So they burnt all these things and they squandered the property. So this actually brought a black mark to our country when it comes to the international arena. This actually brought a black mark to our country. That is why this incident is known to be the Black July, right? This brought a black mark to our country. This is what happened to our motherland. Right, we will move on from there. I hope you guys have completed. Abstraction refers to the quality of dealing with ideas rather than dealing with events. Most of the racial conflict started because of minor incidents. Now, this political problem actually started in Sri Lanka due to a minor incident, right? Due to language. Language is not that like a big deal, right? For these kind of problems, like to create problems between two ethnicities. Language. You can use whatever the language you like. If I can understand your language, that's it. This is the problem of communication. So abstraction refers to people did not think about the ideas. They always thought about the events. Most of the racial conflicts started because of minor incidents. They grew to certain extent of brutality later. Absolution refers to an absolute solution which can be accepted by all minorities. So none of these governments were able to actually provide a solution for them, right? Still, they are asking for that solution. They are asking for their own territory to live. They are asking to remove all these soldiers from those areas in order to live happily, right? Yeah, I agree with you. Some of these, what do you call, requests are actually cannot be accepted, but at least we have to provide them that freedom, because more than 30 years they suffocated from both parties, right? Due to the cruel, brutal LTTE, right? They suffocated from both parties. So they are asking some kind of happiness, some kind of freedom, but none of these governments were able to actually provide that solution. So this is what we highlight, my dear students. Hurry up and write down. Right, okay, good. All the citizens are waiting for their release of their guilty feelings. Sinhalese and Tamils are guilty. They were influenced by petty politicians. They are waiting for the real freedom. No government before the freedom or after the freedom has provided that solution for them, right? So this is what we write. All the citizens are waiting eagerly for their release. They want to release their guilty feelings, right? Sinhalese and Tamils are guilty. Even Tamil people may have done certain mistakes. Even Sinhalese may have done some mistakes. They were influenced by the petty politicians, right? So whatever the mistakes actually done by them, they were influenced for that, right? They were influenced by petty politicians. They are waiting for the real freedom. No government before the freedom or after the freedom has provided that solution for them. No one has actually provided that solution for them. This is what the poetess says, right? So you can have a lot of communal clashes, you can have a lot of riots, right? You can say that we have given freedom to this country, but where is that actual freedom, right? So this was the question actually raised by her. Right. I hope that you guys have completed. All the governments came into existence with the help of minorities, but even after 30 years of war, the problems of these minority groups were not properly addressed. This is what we call absolution. No solution is offered by any government for the real problem. The ethnic differences are still not recognized properly. So this is the last point that we discussed. So today we discussed the most important part of this entire poem that you have to pay your attention, right? This is the most important part that you have to pay your attention, the political history of this particular incident, right? So the entire poem is actually based on that. So make sure to complete your stanza from here. So the next week we are going to write from here, right? Now you know the political history, what actually happened, because when we move on to the other stanzas, if you don't know the political history, then it is very difficult to understand. You will realize that why this actually happened, how these Tamil people actually came to this particular place, what actually happened. You will not have any understanding about this, right? So please make sure to cover up. Then you will realize that this is what actually happened when it comes to the incident, right? Right. So I want to give you a special message. So tomorrow's class will be kept morning 8 o'clock. So if you have any class, don't get upset, because you can get the recording, because during the evening time we have an electricity breakdown. So they have informed us I won't be able to conduct the class. So the class will be conducted morning 8 o'clock. Use the same link. Make sure to participate for the class at 8 o'clock. If you can, if you can't, tomorrow evening you can get the recording. You can go through vendor of sweets from the very first chapter, from the introductory paragraph. You can go through vendor of sweets. So if you can, make sure to join at 8 o'clock. If you can't, don't get upset. You will get the recording. This reschedule will be only applicable tomorrow, because we have an electricity breakdown tomorrow. So as a result of that, I will keep the class in the morning. Make sure to participate for the class in the morning. Right. So we will wind up the session from here. And tomorrow we will start from the very first chapter, from vendor of sweets. We have completed the entire stanza, and next week we are going to discuss a different stanza. I am explaining one by one because this particular poem is difficult. We have 7 stanzas to discuss, and we have a political history as well. That is why I took a lot of time to explain this. So if you have finished, you can leave the meeting. We will meet tomorrow to discuss vendor of sweets from the very beginning. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.